When did you realize that teacher you loved was actually an butt? When he got drunk and beat the crap out of his then girlfriend for turning down his marriage proposal. I started out thinking my art teacher was alright. Then I drew something and he started laughing really hard and exclaimed to me really loudly so the whole class could hear, "This looks like something a 5-year-old drew." Dang, that's fricked up. My art teacher was the exact opposite. If you had no artistic talent, this guy would talk you up and give you pointers on small things until you actually had a good looking drawing. He was the best teacher I ever knew, and I still talk to him 18 years after graduation. When I asked for an academic reference after leaving school, for 8 years she was my head of year and history teacher for 4 of those. Called me a star pupil, we had in jokes. I gave her gifts at the end of each academic year, but suddenly 3 years after I left, she didn't know me well enough to write one. I was really disappointed and tbh a little heartbroken. I complained to some school friends who mostly weren't surprised and said they'd all found her two-faced and didn't like her back then. I was the only one who thought she was amazing and inspiring. Later in life I've had university lecturers happily give me references without batting an eyelid, 5 years after completing their modules. When he'd shamelessly flirt with high school girls. This teacher was the girls' varsity basketball coach, and every year there were rumors about him having sex with a couple of them. I'm sure most of those rumors are exaggerated, but one girl admitted years later that she had sex with him on multiple occasions when she was 17-18. This was in the late 80s. The teacher was about 35-40 at the time and married. When I saw his mugshot show up on local news along with statutory rape and 16-year-old girl, doesn't help that I was one of the only 2 girls in his class. Ah, frick. I was recently talking to my little brother about a high school teacher we both had. My brother thought the teacher was an butthole, and the teacher did not like my brother, either. The teacher and I got on really well. I was trying to figure out why our experiences were so different and the answer was obvious. I was also an insufferable butthole. The teacher and I both bullied people to assert some kind of dominance. I was an awful teenager. He was a worse adult. ETA. Whoa. Thank you for the silver. Game recognize game. When they bullied my friend to the point where she wanted to end her life. We were in the 3rd grade and she would always yell, taunt students, make fun of people with disabilities and flip out over the smallest of things. However, I assumed that this was how life was supposed to be as I had a similar childhood with my peers and home. I felt miserable, but she always helped me with my schoolwork because I was delayed as a child, so that made me like her more than my classmates. She didn't ignore me like everyone else would, so I really liked that. But that all changed when I was over at my friend's home one day and she told me in secrecy that she wanted to end her life. She made a detailed plan and tried to give me something valuable of hers, a My Little Pony doll. At the time, she was not in a good home situation either and the teacher made her life miserable, since she would specifically target her. My friend told me not to tell anyone, but I got my grandparents involved. They got her the help she needed and she's still alive and my best friend to this day. She doesn't know that I'm the one that told and I don't even know if she remembers. I tried bringing it up once in high school because it was relevant to the topic we were on about anyways, but she seemed totally confused. Not upset, just had no idea what I was talking about. I am so glad that she's alive though because she's absolutely amazing. I hope that she actually doesn't remember feeling that way. No one should. You're a good friend. I basically didn't have history class in 10th grade because the teacher was so lazy and apathetic. The students loved that we had free days every other day, and most of the class when it wasn't a free day was him putting a random movie on while he sat on his computer. We had one of those too. He ended up getting fired after he made an insensitive comment about a former student who had died, and it was also the 2nd time he had done that. When he popped up in the local paper for being a nonce. This guy was that teacher that everyone wanted as their teacher in primary school, up to age 10-11. He was funny. He made jokes. He wrote his own assemblies and school plays. We all thought he was such a cool teacher, not like the other stuffy teachers. And I remember he always used to give special attention to kids in the class who were perhaps a bit poor or a bit slower academically, seat them in front of his desk and give them extra coaching and encouragement. And at the time everyone said how nice he was for doing that, but with hindsight he was picking them out and grooming them. Absolutely turns my stomach. My English teacher during my finals. He was always the cool teacher, like watches with us funny videos of screaming goats during the break cool. But back then my English was awful. I struggled with holding a conversation but I really tried. So one day we had to write this essay where we had to compare the relationships in The Great Gatsby with relationships in any other novel. We were allowed to choose. I compared it to the triangle between Harry's parents and Snape. I gave it to him to read and he said it's pretty well and he would like to give me a mark on it. He even underlined the language mistakes I made so he wouldn't have to subtract points for bad grammar. I was excited because I desperately needed a good mark and was proud of my work. I corrected the whole thing. He even approved it and took it with him. The next week I got it back with an 4+. 1 is the best, 6 is the worst. The plus means it was close to an 3, claiming that the content of the essay was awful. The same content that he applauded earlier. When I had my final English exam, he was one of the supervisor. He came to me and whispered that he would be surprised if I would be good enough for an 5. I passed with a 3 and now I'm somewhat fluent in English. Frick that butthole. There was a teacher at my school who everyone loved. He'd always try make lessons super fun. Well, he got a new job and tons of us wanted to keep in touch with him because we all viewed him as a cool guy. I think I was 14 at the time he left my school and every now and then we'd exchange emails but nothing much was said that's noteworthy. When I turned 17 he emailed and I was pleasantly surprised as it had been a while since we last spoke. He mentioned he wanted to visit my hometown in the summer. I assumed to see family, then mentioned there was someone he wanted to meet. Eventually he said it was someone he really missed and then said that it was someone from school. He didn't say it was me outright but I began to feel really uncomfortable and stopped replying. Eventually he wrote telling me to just forget it. He's really sorry and tried to change the topic. I blocked his email and never told anyone. Even now old school friends reminisce about how cool a guy he was and I keep quiet because what do I say? Anyways, that's my weird teacher story. I'd say something like yeah I thought so too but he sent me kind of a weird email senior year. At the start, he was a bit of a ledge, a down-to-earth woodworking teacher, taking us through craftsmanship one lopsided shelf at a time. Then, the next year, he changed. He got into the habit of dropping a pencil on the floor in front of his choice of 13-year-old girl and would ask them to pick it up for him. He'd get a good look up their skirts as they bent down. Then he went away for a few months and came back with bleach blonde hair and an eyebrow ring. Then he went away again a few weeks after that and didn't come back at all. Our woodshop teacher in junior high was a perv as well. You would see him checking out girls' asses as they walked by. And his wife was a math teacher at the same school. She had to have known about it because it was so obvious all the dudes at the school talked about it. When he got caught grooming young girls, turns out he isn't Mr. Perfect. He is a narcissist that preys on people by convincing them that he's perfect. I had a teacher in grade 5 that I thought was really cool. I met him again in high school. He kept getting transferred from one school to another because if he got angry at a student he would hurt them. I've seen him pick up a student and desk and throw them. Rumor has it that in the previous school he broke a student's collarbone. When my history teacher cheated on his wife, who was a teacher at the same school, with another teacher and took her and her kids secretly to Disney World before ever taking his original family there. Sad. My math teacher in 5th grade put me in a corner in the hallway for like a month every lunch because I once asked the whole class to be quiet and that was disrespectful. My dumbass thought I was getting my own quiet space and went there more often, which I guess brought the attention of another teacher, and he said your punishment is done, you can leave. I wonder how many more times I would have had to go there and eat lunch all alone if he hadn't said that. He left my high school, happened to land at the school where my mom taught, and she told me how he was let go for having sex with a student. I looked him up recently and he's now teaching college. I had an app English teacher in junior high that I loved. I had a 98% in her class and truly enjoyed her teaching. In our school, our English teacher would hand out the Student of the Month awards. My football coach had nominated me. However, I didn't know until she brings it to me one day in class. When she handed it to me, I was shocked and said something like, "Wow, student of the month, I've never received one of these before," and she said without hesitation, "I know you definitely don't deserve it." I paused for a second and said, "Excuse me," thinking maybe I misunderstood her, and without blinking she said, "I don't think you deserve that." It was then and there I realized how much of an butt she was. I immediately replied with, "Well, I don't give a frick what you think," which of course swiftly landed me in the office. Despite me advising the principal what she had said, I was hit with the classic "we're not talking about her." It still to this day blows my mind that she was able to get away with that. Sorry about grammar, I am at work and had to type this out quick. When he made 80% of our grade about coming in and recording our choir concert, and I sent him 3 emails saying I couldn't go in, and I got a 0 on it because he never responded to any of them. Well, there was a teacher I liked because he was very animated and kept the attention of the class. But one day he said something slightly sexual to me, and I was caught off guard. He didn't come back the next year. I don't know exactly what happened there. My 8th grade history teacher. Super cool and funny dude that coached most teams and was the teacher for boys to have. In hindsight, having a personality that middle school boys find cool and manly is really bad as an adult. An absolute douchebag through and through. I was trying to think about what the problem was, but then I remembered that was when Family Guy was peak hilarity to me. Everyone loved one of my high school music teachers. Well, I should say all the students loved him. A lot of the rest of the department would put on a brave face, but then stories started circulating about how he'd frick over his co-workers without giving it a second thought. But when you're a student, you don't really know the ins and outs of faculty politics, or at least students shouldn't. Fast forward a number of years. A couple years after graduating from college, I wound up back in my hometown as a music teacher. The popular high school teacher had gotten his administration degree and was now the principal of the building I was assigned to work in. And he was terrible, completely incompetent, rude and unpleasant. Tried to use his physical size to intimidate people in a building mostly staffed by women. I have stories. Someone who was vaguely aware of the history but not the specifics once said to me, "Oh, isn't it so nice that you're working with one of your favorite teachers now?" I told her the truth. Every good memory I had of being one of his students was erased by what a horrible principal he was. Me and a couple other girls had a favorite male science teacher. He would always chat us up about stuff going in his and our lives. This was grade 9. 2 years later he'd transferred to another school and been arrested and charged with sleeping with 2 minors. He'd just had a baby with his wife. Really changed how we thought back on our chats with him. He named his daughter after one of us. He named his daughter after one of us. What the actual frick? When she outright forced me to admit to a crime I didn't commit. My friend stole a bar of cooking chocolate on baking day and hid it in my pay bag. Even though she got caught, and I was on the top field playing with the other kids, she came and found me and said to explain myself. I had no idea what was going on with my crappy friend saying, "Please Pedra, please tell the truth." And I kept saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." So she said, "Well, let me explain it for you then." Told me that friend put it in my bag because I told her to. I said nearly 10 times I didn't do it. She said to me, "You're not leaving until you admit it." I didn't steal it. I still think about it sometimes. Yes, I said I done it. To get out of the situation. Ended up having to tell my mum and headmaster. Both overweight, but funny enough they both seemed to believe me. My mum was there and Miss Thompson pressured me into admitting I done it again. Straight after in the car, my mum said, "Why did you say you did again?" And I told her because she forced me to. Looking back, I wish my mum stuck up for me. The reason she forced me to take the blame, the reason she didn't question it, because I was the fat kid, was my favorite, to my most hated. This was in primary school. I had a MMA coach at community college who taught me self-defense and he was super chill. My self-esteem raised so high after those terms and I was actually enjoying working out for the first time in my life. He didn't teach you how to defend yourself from someone who you thought you could trust but offered you illicit substances and touched you inappropriately while you're incapacitated, which he apparently did to one of his underage students and is now in jail for. I hope he rots in there. For me it was the other way around. Teachers that I hated were actually awesome, and I hated them. because I was just lazy and they wanted me to be better. In year 6, around 10-11 years old, we had this really cool teacher. He was young and really enthusiastic. We were his first class after qualifying. Anyway, he often brought his partner wife into our class to help out as she was a qualified helper aide. She was also really sweet and always happy to help anyone. Several years later, it all came out that our teacher was cheating on his wife with another teacher from the school. It completely destroyed his reputation and his family. I believe he left the school shortly after, but I'm not sure what happened to the other teacher. Drama teacher. Super popular with everyone and charismatic. He borrowed money from students with the promise of being paid back. It was supposed to be for snacks items the class needed. He would later claim he never took any money in the first place. That was a hard $100 lesson I learned. Sounds like he taught an important life lesson. I had a teacher that was really nice to children. Tear up my work in front of me and shove it in the bin because I hadn't colored within the lines well enough for her. I was 3/4. Ruined art drawing for me for life. My favorite English teacher told a black student who earned a college scholarship that she was disappointed it went to them for political reasons and didn't go to someone more deserving. Go frick yourself, Camille. Oh, and my history teacher track coach tried to recruit people for the track team by telling them they have nice legs. Go frick yourself, Tim. Telling them they have nice legs. I honestly tried to come up with a way that telling someone they have nice legs would be appropriate. The only situation I could come up with was a consensual sexual encounter with someone who likes thighs. Mr. Riley was my primary school teaching assistant who did sports at break time and even taught karate and PE. He was my favorite teacher at school. Turned out he had a camera and a pen he kept in his top pocket and would take photos of us getting changed during swimming lessons. Somewhere out there, there's a photo of me doing spider web poses strip naked in the dark web. Holy balls, that's haunting. I started an alternative education program in my 3rd year of high school, which was located in a small area off campus with 4 connecting classrooms and an office. Since it was so new, 2 of the teachers were brand new to our school. The math gym Spanish teacher was super cool at first. He let us hang out in groups in class as long as we actually worked, and he was pretty funny and easygoing. Over the course of the year he got pretty bad. He was letting kids pay him money to pass classes, and when the administrators got suspicious he started slowing down the passing process for the honest kids so it didn't look like so many kids were passing at once. He even went so far as to confiscate my best friend's textbook for 2 weeks so she couldn't do any work at home. Then he started getting inappropriate with the girls at the school. I think the last straw for him was when he confronted a girl for spending her math period in the office with some of the teacher's aides because he wasn't actually teaching. Too busy hanging out the cool kids to be bothered. When she wouldn't come back to class he started telling the administrators to look out for her because she was always messing with the boys along with a few other things. It got kinda heated and he was sent back to his room. I was actually there and it was not pretty. He was definitely not welcomed back. My 7th grade social studies teacher had us do a Warlords of Japan unit. We were divided up into groups and each group had a warlord and an advisor. When I walked in the day he started it, he made me a warlord, which was cool until I realized my advisor was the smartest girl in class. And then I looked around the room and saw all the warlords had the smartest people in class as advisors. It was a really crappy way for him to label a bunch of us as stupid. I don't know if anyone else even noticed he did it. I remember doing this same thing in 7th grade, except the positions rotated. The side effect of this was that a coherent strategy was somewhat more difficult. I was in an all-girls boarding school and my physics teacher didn't let me get in the classroom cause I was late. I even cried. But he had always and continued letting light-skinned girls get in class when they were late. Even 30 minutes late to his class. It was a class of 7 students, 3 of us were dark and the rest were light-skins. Broke my heart and made me give up on physics cause I couldn't tolerate him no more, so I failed my final physics exam. My 4th grade teacher was the bomb. He was funny and smart and creative. He was a ventriloquist and would give all spelling tests using his puppet. He also had a pet rat named Einstein. Then one day he suddenly wasn't there and the school sent home sealed letters to every family. A couple days later I saw his mugshot on the news. He went to jail for molesting preschool age boys. My chem teacher was amazing. I thought girls would change before his class into much more revealing outfits. Grades were directly correlated to how the girls dressed. Guys didn't stand a chance. HS history teacher was 25 and going through her second divorce. She started wearing mini skirts and no panties. We girls didn't have a chance. Ironically, her bestie teacher friend was arrested 6 years later for sleeping with students. Anyone who had them both just thinks she was lucky enough to not get caught. My history teacher at one point in high school was also a pay teacher. He was married to my maths teacher, who I had a bit of a crush on and seemed to have a good rapport with all the kids. Anyway, years after I left school, he appeared in the national news for downloading child pornography. Had a bomb butt professor in college. He pushed me to switch to a creative writing major, which I wanted to do but lacked the confidence. Told me how incredible my work was, helped me with lots of stories and writings that were for a different class. Then he tried to kiss me. LMAO. Yikes. I hope you didn't have to see him too often after that. It would be my personal nightmare to have that happen and then still need like 2 mandatory classes with him. When she bullied the kid the rest of us bullied. Yes, we were little shoots to Nira, but we were in 6th grade. When Miss Palmer did it, something in my head clicked. I would like to believe I was nicer to Nira after that, but I probably wasn't. I was bullied too, and having someone else farther down the pecking order was a relief. A few decades later, I was in New York City. As I got off a subway car, I thought I saw something familiar in my peripheral vision. I turned. As the doors closed, I made eye contact through the doors with a woman on the train. It was Nira. The train rolled away. I wish I could have said hi. I probably wouldn't have had the courage to apologize. But Nira, I'm sorry, and I'm glad you got yourself out of our hick town and made a cosmopolitan life for yourself. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.